can get men to step up and be like big brothers and big sisters. I heard of their program, and that's some things that they do, and such as, like I told you yourself, about like the Hour of the Future program. That's one of those mentoring programs over the years that helped me, and they got programs that's developing now and today that's trying to reach out and really grab these young men by the hand and disciple them.
And so you see this as one of the issues.
Yes, that's one of the major issues.
And
that's a major issue in our community today.
And Ms. Greenlee, oftentimes we talk about the absence of young men in terms of fathers, in terms of a father figure. And would you consider that to be part of the broken generation, the absence of fathers?
Well, of course, that's number one big problem. But the main problem with me is, like I said, lack of funds. Because a lot of fathers are already dead. A lot of fathers are already incarcerated. But you got other fathers out here that are willing to pick up and pitch in, but they don't have the finance or the means to do so. So I'm asking is why we can't be financed ourselves so we can do our own mentoring out of our own houses and out of our own community.
Very good. And of course, what we'll do, we'll take our first commercial break, and then we'll come back for the second segment, and we'll be back with you following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Ms. Greenlee, Mr. Young, and Mr. Flowers, and we're dealing with the issue of the broken generation. Now, Ms. Greenlee has given us excellent information in reference to what she believes constitutes the broken generation, primarily young African-American males who really don't have much of an opportunity in a real sense, dealing with education and other aspects in order to live the good life that is promised by all living in America in a real sense. And so I think that from that perspective, let's speak to that, Ms. Greenlee.
Well, you know, Dr. Haney, for a long time I've been talking about how we have to help our black boys get back into society. And I'm not just talking about a handout. I know people always holler, well, they got to want it. And I've been around a lot of them that want it, and we've been around a lot that don't. So you don't focus on that. You focus on those who want it. My hardest part I have with the young black men is when I done seen them go through school and I done went to their graduation and they still call me on the phone filling out an application at McDonald's or Crystal somewhere and asking me to help them spell this word or figure out this sentence. So I want to bring it back to we are being, number one, rushed through the school system. Number two, we're not being taught and educated like we're supposed to be because of the lack of patience that a lot of people have for us. So I want to come back to the grassroots community, the grassroots home, and really just gravitate and teach our youth. We could talk about everything from school, from the Bible to all the above, but if you just really not gravitating and reaching them, then this point is just ruthless. So I think, you know, we start accumulating our own monies and we start accumulating what we believe belong to us, and then we reach out there and get our us's, then we'll see a totally different thing. I've been here for almost 15 years, and I have not one time been granted a federal grant. Now, do I want it? No, I do not, because it's going to tell me what I need and need not to do. But it's also some local community grants out here and some elected officials and some other powered people that know what I do should already want to pour funds into me for me to continue my work. This is why these two young men are very valuable to me, to talk about more on their level or what do they see and what helped them.
If you look at that from that perspective, Mr. Young, what are some of the really must needs that you believe people in your generation have? I mean, what do you have to have? You understand that there's a high incarceration rate, there's unemployment, and there are many other things, but from your perspective, what do we need? What do they need?
First, education.
First, second, first, good.
And then wealth. Because I can reflect back to the last 15 years that I've established organizations and groups with young kids, and I'll never forget the money that we spent, you know, to maintain, to, you know, take the kids out, to, you know, pick them up, to feed them. You know, it costs a lot of money, and then you got to pay your staff. So it definitely has to do with, you know, the money part as far as keeping these organizations, you know, together. You know, I go back and look, and, you know, 1999 we had all kind of different organizations. Now you look, there's only like maybe 2 or 3 organizations when it comes to dealing with our young black boys.
What about you, Mr. Flowers, from that perspective?
Our thing is I go right back to discipline. I said it got to start with ourselves. Of course, we're going to need funding, because funding going to help you do some things and get out there. I will use some of the examples like the Our Future program I was speaking of that helped bring me up throughout the years. They took us out of town on vacations. They taught us about black history. They taught us about being men and women to prevent teenage pregnancies and things like that. But it took finances. Right now, the organization is not operating. That's because of one of the things is finances. So if we can get someone to start finding out about these programs and financing these programs, and then we can keep these programs to come for the next generation to come.
In a real sense, you think that the local governments and the federal government and individuals ought to be willing to provide the resources. That is, the clients are there. The people who are willing to lead the clients are there, but there's simply not enough financial resources to help you do what you think that you ought to do. Is that what we're saying here, Ms. Greenlee?
That's exactly what we're saying. I say it all the time, Dr. Haney, look around us. You know, they're building a whole city here, and I don't blame the people about whoever they is that's building the whole city, but we're not included. You know, me and my brother, we talk all the time, and I listen to the things he be saying, and he be so angry. He said, look at the whole city that's being built around us. We don't have any of the construction jobs. We don't have any tie-ins into what's coming up around us. And then he also made me realize, if I go up and down Buchanan, he'll say it all the time, the only thing we have here is a liquor store, a funeral home, and Buds. But all around us is all kind of other avenues, but it don't belong to us. So they want to know, like, why we not doing it and why we not building anything. Well, number one, we can't get in. Number two, if we had the finances, and I'm going to keep saying it, I mean, you can bring me the Bible. You could bring me the man at the front door, but once that door closed at 4 o'clock, there's nothing else going on for these young men, or some of these young ladies too, but we talking about the young men now, to do. If we had our own finance, our own monies, this man's organization not only can be rebirthed, it can stay open as long as it wants to. My household that I opens up every single day and night for anybody can stay up and continue to function and run into the wee hours of the day. But it'll give us also the opportunity to be teaching them and showing them the way to life and the way to get back out here in society. So I'm going to keep on saying, if you don't think it's about money when it comes to us in this poor, low income neighborhood and communities, then I think we all need to come back to the table.
And in a real sense, what we're saying, Mr. Young, is that the absence of any kind of financial resources to help support the things that the two of you are doing also helps create a large number of other social problems. When we talk about incarceration, we talk about violence, gangs, drugs, and etc. All is tied into the fact that there are no structures within our community to help, excuse me, alleviate some of these problems. Is that what we're saying?
I definitely agree with that. And another thing that's so valuable, you know, to add on to your point is that, you know, these organizations, you know, like the Eye of the Future, I remember that program, you know, and Calvin Peterson, he ran that program for years and years and years. And I just remember one day he was saying, well, you know, I got to let the program go. And I never understood why he said that, but, you know, now seeing, you know, what I see now is based on finances, based on the money.
No kind of support.
But our part, right.
Not just from the local government, but also from your neighborhood.
Neighbors,
Neighborhood got to pitch in, the leaders, everybody.
There's such a, and of course what we're going to do, we're going to take our second commercial break, and then we're going to come back during this last segment and allow you to further elaborate upon what the three of you consider to be some of the issues. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Ms. Greenlee, Mr. Young, and Mr. Flowers, and the topic is broken generation. What we're trying to do with this program this morning, Ms. Greenlee, is to make people aware of the lack of any kind of resources that can help many of our young people stay out of trouble in a real sense. And I think the term you use is broken generation, and I think that a large number of our young people fall within that category, not because of their own inability to do anything, but simply because of the inability of the government, local communities, private organizations to help provide the resources that are necessary to keep them out of jail, to keep them out of killings and et cetera. Speak to it from that perspective, Ms. Greenlee.
Well, Dr. Haney, if you really look at it, people do their research. Everything that we had, like Mr. Young was saying from the early 90s, it's either been cut out, it's been shut down, or it's been taken away. The budgets have been cut. It always been cut in our low-income communities. We had it where we was filtering out. So now you want to talk about the high rate of incarceration, the drug sales, the gangbangers. Okay, everybody know my son was murdered by a gang member, but it was not because he was struggling, he couldn't find a job and stuff like that. It was because wouldn't nobody let him in. So if you got people, getting busted selling drugs and stuff like that, you got to think, they trying to work. Everybody don't have a felon. Everybody not going to be able to go to